Today's story is one of the strange ones, the kind that makes you say, how could a human being do something like this? How did he even think this way? Come with me now and let's see what happened. The story began in the late 1970s and early 1980s. During that period, there was a young man named Abbas, in his 20s or early 20s, living with his family in a Bedouin tent in humble conditions in the southern Iraqi desert. One day, Abbas's brother got up and killed 2 people from another tribe. But that other tribe were close relatives of Abbas's uncles. Anyway, Abbas's brother killed 2 men from that other tribe, and Abbas's uncles believed that Abbas was the one who encouraged him to commit the crime. Even though Abbas's brother was tried in Iraq and received punishment, revenge culture among desert tribes is something they don't forget. They wanted to take revenge, and that made Abbas a target, hunted by the families of the 2 men who were killed. And as is known in some tribes, they may take revenge from any person in the killer's family. Since Abbas was the killer's brother, he was the closest target. They wanted Abbas's head. Of course, nobody likes this custom. It violates the simplest rules of justice. But some people treat it as sacred and insist on it, even though God says, "No bearer of burdens shall bear the burden of another." But I don't know what people are thinking. After some time, Abbas and his uncles left Iraq and went to the desert of Kuwait and settled there. Later, Abbas and those close to him moved and settled in the Jarrah area, the desert of Jarrah. He worked there as a horse handler, and after settling, he bought himself a pickup truck. Even though 4 years had passed since the killing committed by Abbas's brother, one of Abbas's uncles, named Abbas, in his 30s, continued to treat Abbas badly. He humiliated him, oppressed him, and harmed him for no reason. He even prevented Abbas's sister from getting married. They were not leaving Abbas or his family alone at all. At the same time, this uncle kept pressuring Abbas to return to Iraq, every now and then saying, "Abbas, go back to Iraq. Don't stay here with us. People there are looking for you. Tomorrow they may follow you here and slaughter your family with you. If you're afraid for your family, go back to Iraq and stay there." Abbas began to suspect his uncle. He thought, why is he telling me that? Does he want to hand me over to them so they can take their revenge? I didn't do anything. Why would my uncle do this to me? Then a decision came from the Kuwaiti authorities. Bedouins, those living in the desert, who had no proof of residency in Kuwait, would be deported. Anyone living in the desert without proof of residency would be expelled. This decision affected Abbas, his uncles, and their clan. After that, the uncle came to Abbas and said, "All right, we're going back to Iraq, and I'll go with you to the families of the 2 victims who've been driving you crazy. I'll stand behind you and protect you, and we'll make a tribal reconciliation with them." He told Abbas to leave his job and sell off his belongings, including his vehicle, so they could return to Iraq. Abbas listened. He had no choice. He was going to be deported anyway. He resigned from work, moved his family to a place closer to Iraq in the desert, near the Kuwaiti-Iraqi border, and waited there for his uncles to arrive and take him to the victims' families. There was supposedly an agreement that the uncle would go with him and help reconcile, but Abbas heard that Uncle Abd had returned to his job in Kuwait, meaning he wasn't going to travel. Abbas felt his uncle was deceiving him, luring him to go back to Iraq alone, where he would be handed over and killed. So Abbas said to himself, "My uncle is playing me. I need to confront him, but let me confirm first. If he breaks his promise and doesn't go back to Iraq with me, I'll deal with him." Abbas had a pistol hidden. He took it out and placed it under the car seat. On the evening of September 22nd, 1985, Abbas drove into the desert to where his uncles were living. He greeted them, entered, and sat with Uncle Abd and another uncle, drinking tea. While talking, he confirmed that his uncles didn't intend to go to Iraq with him. They told him, "No, you go back by yourself. We're staying here in Kuwait." At that moment, Abbas thought, "That's it. My uncle is going to hand me over to the victims' families, and they will slaughter me." So he decided, "Fine, I'll show you." Around 8 p.m., Abbas said goodbye and told them he was going back to his own tent where his family was. He left, got into his car, and pretended to drive away, but he didn't go far. He stopped about 2 kilometers away, lit a cigarette, and watched Uncle Abd's tent. He stayed there until midnight. The desert was pitch dark, no lights, nothing, just you, the stars, and the moon. At midnight, Abbas took out the pistol, got out of the car, and walked toward Uncle Abd's tent. He believed they were asleep. He entered the tent, went to where his uncle was sleeping, and saw him covered and snoring, asleep peacefully, not expecting anyone to break in and kill him, especially not someone he was supposed to protect. But Abbas wasn't thinking about any of that. All he had in mind was that his uncle wanted to hand him over to the victims' families. He took out the pistol, placed it on his uncle's head while he slept, and fired 2 shots. When he saw his uncle didn't move and confirmed he was dead, he ran back quickly to his car without anyone noticing. Even though there was gunfire, nobody woke up. He drove back to where he and his family were staying, wrapped the pistol in cloth, and buried it under a tent pole. At dawn, he went to his workplace, planning to finish his business there, sell his car, and escape from Kuwait. At around 6 a.m., Abbas's aunt, who lived in the same area with the uncle who died, went to wake him. The time was late by their standards, and he still hadn't risen. When she lifted the blanket, she found him drowning in his own blood. She rushed to the tent of the other brother, the second uncle, and told him, "Come quickly, your brother is dead." When the second uncle entered the tent, he saw his brother fallen on his face, the place full of blood. Searching the tent, they found bullet casings on the ground near the bed. Immediately, the uncle reported to border security and said he suspected Abbas, his nephew, because Abbas was already a target of tribal revenge. He explained that Uncle Abd always told Abbas to return to Iraq so the family wouldn't get dragged into danger, and Abbas refused unless they returned with him. He also said that the previous evening, Abbas had come to their tent unexpectedly and unusually, saying he wanted to go back to Iraq willingly, and they had agreed they would take him there, so the uncle suspected Abbas did something. Meanwhile, Abbas was packing his things, preparing to leave Kuwait's desert to the Iraqi desert, finishing the car issue and work matters. But he was arrested by Al-Abdali detectives and taken straight to the police station for interrogation. The officer questioned him intensely, tightening the noose, not giving him relief, and evidence kept appearing against him. When Abbas realized he could no longer lie, he confessed to everything. He was referred to the prosecution, then to court. In court, He confessed again to killing his uncle and said, "I killed him because he is a traitor. My uncle doesn't love me because my brother killed 2 men from his clan. Because of that, he hated me. He even harmed my sisters, restricted them, and prevented them from marrying, intending to offer them to the victims' families to please them, as if he wanted to save himself and the clan using my sisters." He said to the judge, "Isn't a man like this deserving of death?" His lawyer defended him and asked the court to refer him for psychiatric evaluation in case he wasn't mentally sound. The court agreed. The psychiatric report came back saying Abbas had no mental disorder and was responsible for his actions. Therefore, the criminal court, through all 3 levels, sentenced Abbas to death, saying his justification was rejected. What he said was not a convincing reason to kill a human being, especially his own uncle, the closest of people to him. Investigations by detectives and police did not prove that Abbas's uncle had done any real harm to him. In front of investigators and the prosecution, it was shown that the uncle had not committed any abuse, and that Abbas's claims were things in his own head. He acted on assumptions and anticipated events to execute him. After that, Abbas was imprisoned, waiting for the day he would be executed. One prisoner who was with him said Abbas used to say his uncle came to him at night in nightmares. He kept dreaming of him, and he always said his conscience tormented him for what he did. But on September 12th, 1988, the nightmares ended. That day was the execution. They took Abbas from prison and brought him to the gallows. There, a prison officer read part of the death sentence, while Abbas stared at the noose in front of him. His face was pale. They took him onto the platform. The executioner was waiting. They tied his legs and his hands behind his back, placed the black hood over his head, and put the noose around his neck. Then the order was given, and the execution was carried out. He was executed because of suspicions. He was executed because of something he imagined. How many times do we see people and say, "He definitely doesn't like me. He definitely did that because he hates me." Then later, when a real crisis happens, we find that person we suspected is the first one standing with us, the first one supporting us. And how many people we expected would stand with us, and we gave them our trust. But when we need them, they vanish as if they never existed. People, assumptions are extremely dangerous. When you think, "This person doesn't like me," you build many things on that belief. You interpret every action as if it's targeted at you, when in reality, the person may not even be thinking about you at all. In a real situation, you discover a person's true character. We judge people by actions and situations, not by assumptions. And many times we see someone whose appearance we don't like, and we treat them unfairly. Since when do we judge people by looks? Since when do we judge people by suspicion? Someone who smiles at you doesn't necessarily love you. Someone who doesn't greet you doesn't necessarily hate you. Maybe they're upset at that moment. Maybe they're quiet by nature. Maybe they don't know how to express emotions. Allah and His Messenger taught us to think well of people. So I hope we apply this, not just repeat it as slogans. If we truly lived by what is in the Quran and the Hadith, our lives would change and become much better. I advise you all, think well of each other and don't judge people based on assumptions. But why does it matter to you? You want a long story. The next one will be longer than this one. I swear it's not a joke. The story of that butcher who killed 200 children or whatever. This one coming is even worse. Every time I think we're done with serial killers, someone worse appears. And now we've reached the end of today's story. I hope I presented it in a way you liked. If this is your first time watching me, don't forget to subscribe. And if you're one of the longtime supporters, don't forget to like and turn on the notification bell so you get everything first. In the end, I tell you, I love you all. May God grant you health and well-being. This was your brother Fadi. Goodbye. Give me a quick like, quickly, and why not to subscribe?